Hey everybody, got a couple of questions that people wanted me to look into today. I gotta switch the board real quick here. Someone's asking about a GTR, and the GTR has a current issue, they believe. So we're gonna look into it. I just have to look up their question real quick here. We also have a question about the ramps again. So let me pull it up here. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, they want me to measure the voltage on part of the board. And the voltage, I believe, is on the end stops that they're asking about, because they didn't name a specific pin. So let me read up here real quick. Okay, so I think they want to know about the voltage on M7 and M9. I'm not sure what those are, but they're talking about something they're going to be connecting to it. So they're checking the voltage out. So let's see if I can find anything. So let's check the voltage on the pins is what they're asking. So I gotta grab a board here. So there's the GTR. Let me move this over. And they're asking about pins in here, I think. I'm not exactly sure, but this is where the TFT goes. So first we're gonna measure with a multimeter and see what we can get, but we're also gonna check to see what the pins are. And I'll check on the chat in just a second, but let me place this down here. And the safe way that I like to do this is actually using jumpers off the board and putting them in front of me. So I'm going to move the board up a little so that hopefully you can see everything in frame. But let me check on the chat real quick here. It's going to take me 2 seconds to actually get it up because apparently I forgot to bring it up. So 2 seconds, I'll have that in front of me. Okay, now I can see the chat window. Sorry about that. I didn't have it up initially. But what we're going to do is figure out what these pins are and what the actual voltages off the pins may be. So to do this, I got to grab jumpers. So I have some laying around here someplace. Let's see if I can find them. Here we go. So we'll use these and we'll figure out what's going on. So I'm going to go over to the pinout diagram and I'll show you what I'm doing in 2 seconds here. So inside the browser, we're going to go to the website for the SKR, or excuse me, not the SKR, Big Tree Tech GTR version 1.0, and it's the GitHub is what we're looking for. So we're going to click on that, and inside here we're looking for a picture of the pinouts. So let's see if we have a picture here. So it doesn't exactly say pin, but let's see what they say. So it might be the pins just below TFT interface, so we're gonna have to search around a little here. So let's try over here. This is for the M5, so that's the pins for the M5. So it's not that. So we'll go back and we'll see if we can look in the manual maybe. So manual. Oh, there's pins right there. So we have TFT, but it doesn't say exactly what's in front of it, except let me zoom in so you can see better. It says 12 volts. So I'm guessing one side is voltage, one side is ground. So 12 volt, 5 volts, 3.3 volts. So those are voltage and ground pins probably, because there's the GND on this side. So this is all ground. And then these are volts. So we can measure those in a second. I have to hook up a power supply to do that. But let's measure the end stops as well. It says 3.3 volts are coming out. And then you have ground and then your signal pin. So we can check the voltage on that as well to see if that's their question. But hopefully they showed up so they can ask me the question. But that's what I'm guessing they're talking about. There's also a 5 volt pin and a ground pin right here that we can check. And they also want me to check the reset pin to see if it works. So I'm going to go back and check on the chat real quick. Hi. I have had an experience with 0.9 degree steppers. A lot of people are having noise issues in the Stealth Chop with TMC drivers. I've done a lot of testing with the chopper timing for spread cycle. That's great. So you're getting noise in it. So I don't know if I have 0.9 degree steps that are labeled in my cache of steppers, but I can check and see if we can make it quieter. Which TMC drivers are you using? Okay, let me go over and check on the desktop so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so we need to add voltage to this. So I'm going to power this up in a second. I just want to lock it down in place so it doesn't slide around on me. So this may take a few seconds for me to prep. And then frame it for you. So what I need to do here is clean up my table a little. So let me get some of the stuff off it that's in the way. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up the power. Just going to need to grab a screwdriver, which I put someplace. Well, let's see if this works. So there's two different screws that you have to do for this. You have the one for your motors. As you can see, I marked them red for voltage and black for ground so that I don't hook up the wrong things. So I'm going to hook up the motors over here. These have nice connectors so that you can do this safely. And then I also have to hook up the logic to the board. So it's the same process. So those are locked down nice. Put the protective cover down. Now I'm gonna find the cord to make sure I have the right power supply. And I'm just gonna place it right here for a second. Hopefully. Okay, so what we want to do is first measure power from USB and see if like 5 volts is actually 5 volts. And I'll show you the process. So right now it's on direct power, so I need to move this over to the jumper for USB. So we can test it by plugging this in, and we now have power. So I'm going to unplug that for a second And I'm going to grab a jumper wire as soon as I figure out where it went. I think it slid off the table while I was moving stuff around. Wow, that's awesome. So, let me grab some more. Okay, I'm going to put this in for black. And that's going to be ground. And I'll place it right here. And then I'll place the other one over here so I can actually test it. And then I need a red one. So I'm going to place one. Let's see it. Let's look at the diagram real quick so I don't get this backwards. So on the diagram, you can see the voltage is 12, 5, and 3.3. So we'll start with the 5 and 3.3 because they're safest. So I believe it's that one for ground. And then for voltage, it's going to be the one in front of it. And then what we'll do is measure these as they sit on the table, or at least that's the plan. Get this so it'll actually bend down to where I want. And I'm gonna put some putty down just to keep it in place because it's a little difficult to work with. So there we go. And I'll do the same for the other one. It also improves the contrast so you can see what I'm talking about, I hope. Hang on, let me bring it up because I know you can't see what I'm doing. So I just put down some putty just to hold these so I can actually touch the leads. And I'm going to plug it in. And then I'm going to turn on the voltmeter and hopefully do it right the first time. So let's go to millivolts just to see what's going on. And then I'm going to take the probes from here and do red to black. Black is ground. And then I'll do red. So right now we're seeing nada. Let's try it over here. Okay, maybe I'm measuring wrong. Let's try over here. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any voltage at the moment. Excuse me. So let's try over here. There we go. That's 5 volts exactly. It's just what I was set on. So I'll show you again. I'm set on the one that looks like it's got a averaging on it. Right there. So it's 5 volts. Another way you can do this is ground because it's a ground plane that goes into the board, and you can do it there. So just a little trick in electronics that might help. But let's take this out and check the voltage on the next side. So we're going to go to the last 2 set of pins and see if we get 3.3 volts. So I'll plug it back in. And then I'll do the same thing. So ground. And it's almost 3.3 volts. Yeah, so it's off by, a little bit, but that's 3.3 volts essentially. So let me pop this out. I'm actually going to stabilize this board a little bit more because it's making me nervous. There we go. And we'll try it again, but we're going to try it with 12 volts. So I'm going to go over to here. and do the measurement again. This time, I'm going to do direct power. So you won't have any power out in theory when I plug it in this way, but let's test it real quick. Ground. Voltage is 0. So I'm going to plug it in and see what happens. Hopefully this won't be a mess. So now the board is energized, so you don't want to touch it. So you're going to touch here with a probe, and you're going to touch here with a probe. And that seems a little low. So they might be doing something on the board that I don't know about, but they do say it's 12 volts. So let's try over here. So it's about 11 volts. So if you're going to run a fan, it might work, but I doubt it. But we can always try that out in a second. Okay, so I'm going to power this down. Notice how there's capacitance, which means that it takes a second to actually discharge the voltage. So that's what the lights are for. So I'm just trying to find a fan I can plug into it. And amazingly, I don't have any fans with connectors I haven't changed. There we go. So this one, I'm going to use this fan connector, and I'm going to plug it in according to voltage and ground right here. We're going to see if the fan turns on. So I'm going to plug it back in and see what happens. And the fan does work. So we know that's good, we just don't know how much voltage we're expecting doesn't look right. So there might be some circuitry that's occurring in here that's causing it to slow down. But what we've measured is about 10 volts, and I guess that's what they're seeing. So I'm going to plug it back in one last time and test again. And try the probes again. Okay, it looks like almost 11 volts. I'm going to unplug it and move those over just 2 and see what happens. So I'm going to move it right here and see if there's any difference. So it's about 11 again. So that's interesting. Now we'll do the other pins. So I'm gonna check the voltage pin, so I'll show you that just so we can see what the output is. So if I go over to the browser, what we want to know about are these 2 pins right here to make sure that they're giving the right voltage. So 5 volts and ground. So looking at the diagram, we're going to do voltage first, then we'll do ground. I think what the concern was, there's a variability. We'll try it with the jumper first and what they're seeing. So now that we have that powered up, we can test again. And that's just over 5 volts, which is not bad. Let's test it over here. Yep. Let's try it with direct power. Whoop. And see what happens. Seems to drop a little. So there's something going on when you have direct power. But relatively speaking, it's not bad. It's very close. So I'm gonna unplug that. Let it discharge for a second. That's where I put it. And I'll check on the chat in just a second. So all the answers that I got so far are the voltages except for 12 volts seems a little bit low. So I can understand their concern. The actual circuitry of the board I'd have to trace out. But that would be more a question for Big Tree Tech as to why they labeled it 12 volts. There are ways to work around it, but for now, that was the question they had. Let me check on the chat here real quick. Wow, this loves to move around on me. TMC 226 and the TMC 2209s. Okay, well, I can show you that in a couple minutes. There's one other thing I have to work on real quick, and that's something for, what was it? The ramps. Someone wanted to see if I can make a motor move with a A4988, and then I'll do your question next. So essentially, I have both steppers. I haven't used the TMC 2206 yet, or 2226, but let me double check to see if I have those nearby. So I have to break down my setup just so I have sanity when I change things around, guys. So usually I move the wires out of the way because I've got multiple power supplies. So I like to keep myself as least confused as possible. So I'm gonna get this out of the way. By the way, a multimeter is your best friend when working with electronics. It's the most multi-usable tool you'll ever have. If you want, I'll put Amazon affiliate links in the description, but I'm trying to avoid doing that on live stream, just so it can be easier on people to listen. Okay, let me get this out of the way. So I haven't worked with the ramps in a very long time, and I'll bring the camera up in a second. But let's see what happens. Okay, here's the ramps. When you're doing stepping with the ramps, I'm going to turn it back the other way in a second, but all 3 jumpers for maximum degree of step should be placed on it. So I'm going to probably work off of, let's see, it's X, Y, Z, E0, E1, so I'll do X. And I'll lock this down so it doesn't slide around on us. And then I gotta find a very large stepper and the stepper for it. So give me a second to see if I can dig it out. Just gotta figure out where I place them. One would think I would have these on hand someplace. I haven't worked with the A4988 in a while, so I usually don't keep them nearby. And I had a little box of them, which is awesome. So I might have to go in the other room and grab one, because I know I have a ton in the other room. Let me just see if I've got the little container here someplace. Okay, yeah, I'm probably going to have to grab some. I'll be back in less than a minute. Unless there's one in here. Nope. Well, amazingly, I don't have them in my normal place. But I'm just peeking around, seeing if I have left them in a board and I don't know it. But I'll look at the questions in a second. Yeah, it's very painful to reflash the firmware every time. But you can usually get a good idea of what you want to do and then refine it from there. One of the things I like to do is back up the file just in case I make mistakes, or it's a great way to compare against possible issues that may arise when you do that. But apparently, I know I have a box of them someplace. Huh. Found my leaks. Sorry, I was going to be cooking later, so. But there's a little container I had of these someplace. Sorry, I'm going through some of my old boards to see if I left it in there. It's amazing how many boards I haven't shown you in tutorials. Wow. Can't believe I don't have a stepper on hand. So I'm gonna check my pile here, see if I have any. I actually have the A49, or excuse me, the DRV 8825 like everywhere. Every time I turn around, I see one. But I might be able to show you on that stepper, but I know it'll work on that one probably. So let me grab the motor. I might have to do this on Saturday if I can't find the parts. Let's see. Apparently now I have more LCDs than steppers. Let's see what we got in here. Nope. Amazing. Okay, well, I guess I'll have to show that Saturday, but I'll show you what the process is. And then the person can figure it out from there, and I'll try and find the steppers by Saturday. So essentially what's going on is they want to see how to make this step. So the first thing is you need to hook it up over here. That's for the X. And then this, the enable pin has to match. So we're going to have to check where these are. So I'll probably zoom in on this and see if I can see the enable pin. So we don't see it on top, so I'll flip it over. So if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, there's an EN for enable. That's our enable pin over here. So we're going to have to verify that the enable pin is over here on the board. So to do that, we'll go over to our browser and we'll search on, let's see, ramps 1.4 pinouts. And it's probably this one. And the board is oriented the way that we want to look at it. And then over in here, we have to zoom in. So hopefully I'm going to actually see this. So let me zoom in a little. Down here you can faintly see the EN, but we can always find a better version of this. So let's see if we can find a high detail one. Let's see. Yeah, that's just as good. Huh. Sorry about that, guys. But I know where the pin is, so I'm gonna kind of leave that alone. Unless I can find a better diagram. That one looks better, but you're not seeing the pin. Needless to say, I believe it's right here. You can probably see the EN written right there. There's an EN. It's horrible, their display, so I'll find a better diagram of that in the future. So let me go back here. So what that means is this pin has to be right here on this stepper. And that's the process for all steppers. Otherwise, you might see sparks. So that's why it's good to double check. And then you got to work this in. I haven't done this in a while on this board. There we go. And then we need power. So I believe it's these two, but I have to look at the diagram real quick. Yeah, it's, I believe, the top two. The bottom are 5 volts. So we might have to hook up both, in which case I don't have the power supply. But let's see if it works, because I think I need both. So I think I ran into this problem before where I was like, oh, I don't need the other one. But in which case I might have to modify my power supply real quick. Actually, this pops out. So, you can slide these in like so, and then you can tighten it down. And then you would plug it in like so. And I'll bring up the actual firmware in a second, but this will power the board. And then I'll clean this up so it doesn't look like a mess. There we go. This might not work because I need the other power supply, but let's see what happens. Okay, I'll put that off to the side. So you're going to go over to VS Code. Inside VS Code, my tutorials on these are kind of stale because they came out with new firmware. So I've got to show you the process of how they changed it. So I'm going to go to my open folder, my downloads folder, ramps 2.0, 2.0, select folder. Sorry, I'm going a little fast. Everything is default for ramps in this board already, as you can see. So let's go over to the Marlin folder, or excuse me, the configuration.h folder. And inside here, we're going to search on A4988. In the original tutorials I did, these didn't exist. Now they do for, I believe, both firmwares. So to enable stepping, you need to remove the comment first. Now they might work for the A4988, but I'm not sure. I haven't tested it. But what we want is the DRB8825 in this case. So DRB8825, where are you hiding? There you are. Dai. And I'm going to paste it right here. Now with these, you used to have to double these values because it's 1/32 of a step, so it would be 160. But that rule may have changed because they've done something different for the TMC steppers where these start at 80 now. So I'm going to go back over to the compile over here, which is an upload button because the board's already connected. So we're going to see if we can actually do it because everything's default. If it doesn't work, we may have to change the motherboard setting for the serial port, and I'll show you that. Up here, this might be 1. I can't remember. But it looks like it just finished compiling and now it's uploading, so it's probably 0 in this case. Sorry, I have to guess on this one because it's been forever and a day, and I used to do this in the Arduino IDE. But I'll check on the chat while that's going on. Looks like it just finished. Okay, make notes besides the settings I changed with the previous settings and default settings. Yeah, I have a lot of issues with settings flipping around that I didn't know what was going on with them. That's why I take my time with them. So let me bring this over to Pronterface after we check on the board. So let me bring up what I'm actually about to do. So I'm going to actually power this board now. This is the part that might not work. We'll find out. So I'm going to connect it. Power supply came on. Obviously, we're not going to see a lot of flashing lights. So let's go over to Pronterface. Inside Pronterface, we don't know what our current configuration is for the serial port, and I'll show you a trick to find it. So let me bring up the view you can see. Oh, I'm gonna just do it this way. So I'm gonna go over to here and type device manager, and this will bring up our actual connections. And inside here, you're gonna click on ports, and the Arduino Mega 2560 is port 21. So I'll close that down, and then I'll bring up Pronterface. Inside Pronterface, we're just gonna see if we can move the motor. It might not work because I might need the other connection. So let's see what happens. So inside here, I'm gonna change the 1 to a 21. It might be in the drop down, but I doubt it. Yep. And so we're gonna connect. So it says it's connected. Now let's try moving a motor. This ought to be interesting. So it's the X stepper. So I'm gonna move it 10. And it's not moving. So what I need to do is power the system down and connect that other thing. So I'm going to disconnect, and I'm going to go back to the desktop so you can see what I'm about to do. Now keep in mind the camera might click out on me once during this. If it does, I'm just going to restart it. I still have to fix that issue. So what I need to do is pull the power supply out. So give me a second to get it into position. Now this is usually based on the locale you're in, your power supplies. So I usually don't answer questions on the power supply because it may vary per country. And there are a lot of variables. So over in here, I know you can't see the whole thing, so let me move this over. I need to add an extra cable or two, and I've got to find them. So down in here, there's COM for ground, and then V plus for voltage. Hopefully I'm doing it right. So I'm going to loosen the bolts and connect this cable. And then I'm going to do the same over here. Sorry, I don't have a excuse me, good view of what I'm doing, so. And probably you don't because my hands are in the way. Essentially, I'm just hooking up the power so that I can hook up the other one. So I'm going to take this out of the way, put it back down, move this back to where it should be, bring this into frame for you, and then run that cord over. So I'm going to pop this out and inject it into the other one. So I have ferrule connectors on this for safety. That's so that the wires don't fray and cause a short, and plus boards are expensive, whereas ferrules are very cheap and save you from expensive fixes. Or at least that's what I tell people, because people have seen me have issues myself. So okay, so those are all done. I'm going to plug this back in. I'm going to find the power cord I'm working with. Okay, I'm going to make sure there's nothing obstructing, and I'm going to plug it in. And then I'm going to go back over to Pronterface and see if we can get this to work. So inside Pronterface, we're going to connect. And then we're going to wait for it to come up. Then we're going to try and move. So in my case, the 5 amps wasn't connected. But it does work on this stepper, and maybe tomorrow I can try the other one if I can figure out where I left it. That, and I probably need to keep a reserve of them nearby. Huh. Okay, let me try that last question we have here. So I'm guessing you said SKR. I don't have the ones for, what is it, 0.9 degree off the top of my head here, but let me see if I can find one. I might have some in the other room, but back then I didn't label them because I didn't think I was going to use them in a tutorial live. So let me see if I've got some right here. So one of the things you can do is you can look up what these are, and I'll make this bigger so you can see. On a website, they have a way to look these up. Let's see if we can try it out. So I'm gonna go over to, I think it's a NEMA lookup page. Let me see if I can find it. So if you do NEMA 17 data sheet lookup, and then I'm going to put in the number that you just saw, which is 42 SHD C 4040 dash 25 WB. And let's see if we can find out what the data sheet says. That looks like it, or at least it looks close to it, right there. SHD, that appears to be the one. So let's see what we got here. This will tell me if it's 1/8 or 1.8 degrees of step or 0.9 degrees. So this one I have is 1.8, so I know that's the wrong one. So let me see if I can grab one in the other room. Okay, I just grabbed one in the other room, and this one is 1.8 degrees. It's actually written on it. Let's see if I have a different one over here. Nope, that one's 1.8 as well. This one doesn't have a label on the bottom like the other, so maybe it's different. And it's got a different serial number. So that's what I was looking at before. Now it's over here. So I'll show you what I'm talking about because you can't see what I'm saying. So let me see if I can zoom in on this so you can see what I'm talking about. What we're doing is we're using the actual number on it to find out what the stats are. So it's 17HS19-2004 S1. Let's see if this one works. So I'm going to go over to the browser again. I know this seems a little boring, but you got to look up the data sheets every once in a while. I'm going to take out this part, and then I'm going to look it up. So it is 17 HS19-2004 S1. so that looks like it. So I'll open it up, and right here looks like it's 1.8 degrees of step, so I don't have that one either. So let me try another one. I actually might have it in my printer. Now this one's another one of the same that I showed you. Well, I can try a smaller stepper, but it's probably not going to be that interesting. So I'll just show you how to set up the actual configuration for now, and then I'll have to dig that up as well. So let me grab a board. Okay, so whoops, grabbed a 1.3. Here we go. SKR 1.4. This is actually turbo. I'll show you what I'm doing as soon as I zoom out here. There we go. And I'll also focus it probably because it doesn't look that great to me. And then I'll check on the chat because I know I've gone off on a tangent. That, and I gotta fix the power supply real quick. Okay, so here's the board. Let me get some of the stuff out of the way. I'm actually going to use the stepper on the actual rail in front of you. But I need to neaten up a little here. That, and I need to break down things. And I'll check in a second, I promise. Just want to make sure that I have everything set up safely before I start talking again. There we go. So we need to wire this up first as I knock everything over. So, like before, ferrule connectors. These are done already, so I'll slide these in, tighten them down. So that's done safely. Next, we'll find a TMC 2209 to start with. Now, remember, the jumper for that's going to be right here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in the actual manual. And let me look at the chat real quick here. Yeah, there's different options to check different chopper timing. I haven't played a lot with the choppers, obviously. I prefer just the quiet of the stepping, so I don't really need the speed. So let me set up the environment real quick here. Give me 2 seconds to clean up the previous setup. So what I'm doing right now is basically extracting a new Marlin from scratch, just for my sanity when I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm also gonna plug in a stepper and then show you in the browser what's going on. So I'll plug this in over here, and that's gonna be for this. And over in the browser, we're gonna go back to the Big Tree Tech website. Of course, I'm not showing you what I'm doing here because I'm in the wrong place. There we go. So Big Tree Tech, we're going to go over to the Big Tree Tech 1.3, then go to the 1.4. There is an instruction manual right here. Now, they may not have the manual for the actual 2226s, and I might have to do research on that, but it might be on their website as well. So let's see if it's in here first. But we also need to know our jumper settings. So if I scroll down here, for UART, we need to be right here. They talk about TMC 2209s. These are also 2208s. If you're not using, or if you are using an end stop, you have to cut off that pin. You're better off using a TMC 2208 in that case. So I'm going to go over to, well, I'm going to go see if they have the 226 because I'm not sure what I'm doing on that one. So we're going to go to, well, they don't have a wiki. So we're going to go back over here. We'll do a repository. We'll do TMC 226. Okay, that didn't work out very well. They have TMC 2225. Let's see what's going on with that one. See, what I'm trying to figure out is if it's UART or if it's UART. And the reason I need to know that is so that I can set it up correctly because there's different jumper positions. So let me go back over to the workbench and show you what I'm doing. So down in here, before I plug anything in, I already have the jumper in place because I seem to do this a little bit often. So now I'm gonna hook up the 2226, assuming that it's UART. Let's see if there's anything on the manual here. So it doesn't tell me what it is. I'm assuming UART. You could probably look at the pins and the board. And I'll check on the chat before I make a huge mistake. But it looks like this underneath. And you're gonna run these with actual cooling fins on top. So let me see if I can stand this up so you can see it better. There you go. So that's a 10-time mag. Let me see if I can focus it for you. Of course, they labeled it bottom, which I think is super clever. But they showed, it looks like a simplified jumper, and they look slightly bigger, not jumpers, pardon me, resistors. These resistor pads seem kind of large to me. The tiny ones are hard to see. But we're going to use it with sensorless homing just because that would make life easier for me. I don't want to clip any pins. So I know where the enable pin is. It's in the upper left-hand corner or bottom left-hand corner over here. And the pins match up color-wise. So I'm going to place this inside here. And then we're going to go over to Marlin after I plug it in. Let me just move some stuff over. Okay, so USB power. Now there's two different jumpers here. There's USB and there's direct power. When we run it, we have to run it with direct power, not USB. So you're going to take this off, place it right here, plug it in. That'll allow you to connect to the board. That's that little beeping sound. And let me bring up VS Code. Inside VS Code, we're going to do what we did before. We're going to go to Explorer, Open Folder, Downloads Folder. We're going to open up the first Marlin, the second Marlin, select folder. And then we got to pick a few things in this case. So it's Marlin, then it's going to be source, core, boards.h. You can do a search on SKR 1.4. Once you found it in here, hang on a second, might be underscore, sorry. So SKR underscore 1 might be V1. And there we are. So I'm using the turbo down here, so I'm going to copy that. But if you're not using the turbo, it's right here. Note the actual chipset you're working with. So it's LPC 1769 in this case. This one's 68. That means this one's a faster processor because it's, I guess, higher in number. But let's go back and see if we can set this up in the firmware. So config.h, search on motherboard, highlight the ramps board, paste it. We got to change the serial port to -1. Then we got to search on the stepper, so it's A4988 to get us in the neighborhood. Once we're in the neighborhood, we're gonna enable the X, and then there should be a TMC 22 something in here, but I'm not sure if it is. Sorry, I have to read through this slowly. 2209. Okay, so my guess is that since it's not listed, we go with something else, but I'm looking through the list. This one that extends out. And we're gonna have to probably use the TMC 2209 for it, because that's UART. And then someday they'll update Marlin's firmware, but we can check that inside Marlin's bug fix and see if it exists there, because they may have already updated it and we just don't know when we're using release. So I'll check on the chat just to make sure I'm not making a mistake. Let's see, setting in UART, yes. Okay, I'm running. Someone's talking about their extruder, I think. I'll look at that in a second. How's it going, Griselic? Okay, so now that we got that set down here, this we're gonna have to keep an eye on because this is proportional to config advanced. So I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna search on 800 just to get us where we need to be. And we're using this stepper. So 16 is related to the 80. So if you change this to 160, a lot of people have heard me say this before, then you're gonna have to change this to 32. If you change this to 320, then you need to change this to 64, and I'll do it 2 more times, and then I promise I won't do it for a while. If you do 640, then this has to change to 128, and if you do 1280, this should change to 256, and that's how I do it. I'm sure there's people out there that might disagree, but that's the general setting. Next thing we have to do is set up the debug, so it's TMC underscore debug, and we have to enable this one first, so I'm going to remove that. Then we're going to find the other one, and this gives us G codes. That's the reason I'm doing that, so we can check on the status, because I don't want to cook the board by accident, because sometimes you've seen me do that, or once. Now that we got that done, we're going to search on sensorless homing, if I can spell correctly. see. That's not the one, so we have to go up. And we need to enable it right here. Once we have that enabled, I'm guessing that the configuration is going to be similar to the TMC 2209. What I normally set for that's about 125 for stall sensitivity. And at the moment, I'm not going to change these around just because this is usually during a print. But there's obviously things he's asking about for hybrid threshold and stuff like that. I'm just going to show you that I can get it working in quiet, or at least that's the plan. So I'm going to upload as soon as I change my platform.io.ini to, I have to change the default environment to LPC 1768. And let me make sure I'm on the right screen because I know I have a habit of drifting off. I am. So I'm going to click compile on that, and hopefully I changed to -1. But let's see what happened because I failed on something. So over here, that looks incorrect because this is 69. So LPC 1769, like I was telling you earlier to remember, I didn't. So now that we got that set, we're gonna try a compile and upload again, or build. And I'll check on the chat in a second, and hopefully that won't fail a second time. Okay, it is failing. So now we got to figure out what's going on here. So it's saying no such file or directory. So I'm going to go over and check to see if there's actually a file folder. So let me bring this to where you can see it. So right now, this is the previous build that's on the device. We can see the device, so we know we're good connected that way. But it might think that we're using a different connection, but I doubt it for Pronterface because we disconnected that. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a clean. Sorry, I run through a possibility list out loud, which is my way of thinking about the problem for you. So I'm going to rebuild again. Now there may have been some junk from a previous build in the .pio. But if it fails again, then I've got to go to Pronterface and shut it down and reopen it. But I don't think it will fail. So it just passed. So to load this, I'll click over here, verify that I got it, which is the firmware.bin, which is our binary. And hopefully it'll convert it into this with this date. So I'm going to go over to the desktop. I'm going to disconnect the power, reconnect the power, and what's going to happen now is that it's going to hopefully load the firmware, and we can check that on the actual computer. So I'll go over there and check, and notice how the date and time has changed, and it's all capital letters. This is actually the build. And for people that don't know, if you want to go back and try and reload your build or use it on a second printer, here's a trick you can do. You can go to rename, say firmware.bin, and then what you can do is go back to your desktop, and I'll show you what happens. So on the desktop, disconnect, reconnect, and this is how you would load it on another system in theory. But then if you look at the desktop now, it says firmware.cur. Sorry for that slight detour, but I just like showing that every once in a while. So let's go back to the desktop, and what we need to do is power it down. We need to take the jumper and put it on direct power for the PSU. Now we reconnect this and there will be no power. Next, we verify that we have the right power supply. So I'm going to plug this in. And hopefully we won't see any sparks like last time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Pronterface. And obviously I've got the same issue I had before on Pronterface, where I don't know what to connect because it might be this, but let's see what happens. That probably is not working. So I'm going to go to Device Manager. So I'll let you see what I'm doing here. So inside Device Manager, hang on, I got to pull it over. We're going to check on the COM port. It's 13. So hopefully you saw that and I didn't pull it by too quick. But let's open Pronterface again. Inside Pronterface, change the 14 to a 13. Connect, and we're now online. So let's try moving the axis just 10 to see if it works. So it's moving, but it's moving in the opposite direction. So let's try homing it now and seeing what happens. So is yours that quiet or is it louder? And then what's the difference between your settings and mine would be the next question. So let me go to the chat and see what's going on. So I think we got it functional. You said something about Stealth Chop. Obviously I probably don't have the same steppers, so that might be a difference. It might be causing more noise, but I can order a new stepper for 0.9 degree step and try it out and see what happens. But let me go over and see what you got here. You got Spread Cycle, and then you have Stealth Chop. Let's see if we can change that. Yeah, it may be specific to 0.9 degree step. Not sure if 0.9 degree step is the most helpful stepper, because I had a lot of issues with it when I was experimenting with it. I did get it to work with TMC, or not with TMCs, with DRB 8825s, but that was like 4 or 5 years ago. I liked it back then, but I think those actual steppers are still in a printer, and I don't want to tear them out yet. Actually, I know which printer they're in. Maybe Actually, I got another thought. This might be hilarious. So let me show you something. Because you know how we were checking serial numbers before? Let me power down the system. Hopefully this one doesn't say Trunksy on the back. So let me move this over and get that out of the way. So I don't know if you can see that. I'll make the screen bigger. And then I'll check it in 2 seconds. Sorry, I'm trying to balance this while moving a screen on my side. Let me focus in here, and you might have to read this off to me, or I'll just pick it up and look. But that's the stepper I'm using. It's actually pulled out of one of my older printers. So let's look this up and see what we've got, because we might have what we were talking about all along. So if we go over and we look up in the browser, of course I lost the spot in the browser and I had the perfect search on that. So do data sheet NEMA 17 and then put in the number of it. In this case 17HS. This is actually out of my old printer that's kind of looks like a Creality from I think 2017 if you guys look on online. 2004 S1. Hopefully we'll see what this is. So I'll click on that as soon as I confirm it. 2004. Okay, so that's kind of close. So let's open it up and read through here real quick. No, apparently I'm not helping. I'm just need to tear apart the other printer or order one. So I'm probably going to order one because I don't want to take my printer apart. So let me check on the chat real quick. Had some improvements on the VFAs. I'm not sure what a VFA is. Let me Google it because my vocabulary apparently is probably not going to be the sharpest when it comes to abbreviations at this hour. Oh, with the tooth. Yeah, you can improve the step that way. Tension obviously is going to be an issue for the GT2 belts. But when I'm thinking about it, the best way to improve the steps, instead of doing 80 and 160, if you're using the TMCs, kind of use them the same way that I just showed you in the chat. Very fine artifacts. Ah. Yeah, you're talking about like echoing on the image where you do a circle inside a square and you get like the circle echoing everywhere. Okay, well let me see if I can actually find that. So I'm gonna see what else we got here. I just gotta move the view so you can see what I'm doing, and I've also got to adjust this so you can actually see it in frame again. Okay, I know I've moved it a little bit. I'm gonna put that back. This is actually one I did on a printer mod for those that watched a while back. This is dual color on, I modified a Creality, or sorry, an Ender 3. But let me bring everything back into focus. And I think you're talking about the echoing that you see like on one of these. Obviously you're not seeing it very well, but I had some issues. I was also printing at a higher speed. You might be able to see the imperfections in it. Part of it is due to the slicer. I didn't change to the older slicers to test it. This was with Cura. But Cura's got a bug in it where it turns off your extruder on the last color. So the trick to that is go in and edit the G-code and take out the second to last power down of the extruder. Not the last, because if you take out the last one, it won't power down. But the second to last one, when you're doing two colors. So let me check on the chat for a second. And let me see if I can, yeah, regular vertical lines across the surface of the print. So like if you're printing a square, you're seeing like these little shaky lines going up it. I think you might also be able to deal with it with slower speed. But I'll have to order a 0.9 degree step or start swapping them out of one of the enders and putting them in. So let's see what we got here. Wow, we're 2 hours and 18 minutes in. Or an hour and 18 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm not awake today apparently. So I'm going to actually manipulate some of these settings just to see what can go on. So if I go up here and I go to spread cycle, we'll see if there's a difference in actual sound. So I'm going to bring up VS Code. And also check on the chat because I saw something pop. Yeah, there's probably a lot of information on Marlin. Marlin's probably the most actively developed 3D printer software in the world. Someone was asking me about trying to try Klipper or other things today. I'm going to have to try them out off camera because I'm too nervous to try them on camera. But I know, what is it, Repetier is very similar to Marlin, if not the same. It does have different end stop functionality for what it trips as. It's just a different way of displaying the Boolean of triggered or open. I think it's yes or no or something. I can't remember. But let me search on this real quick. So spread cycle. Right now, spread cycle looks like it might be enabled, but let's try hybrid threshold. Now they don't say my stepper's in here, the one I have in there, but TMC 2209 seems to make it sound safe. But there's also stealth chop, I think is what you're about to tell me. So it's already enabled as is. If I disable this, it goes into spread cycle. So let's try doing the other one. Okay, thanks. So spread cycle, let's do this. This probably won't work on one stepper, but let's give it a try. Hopefully I won't cause my setup to explode, but I've had pretty good luck out of the, 50 I've done so far. I've only blown up one board, and every time I talk about it, it's usually a couple days later that I do it. So I'm gonna plug back in the USB. Whoop. This is gonna fail because they don't have the USB set to the right jumper position without power. So I just moved it over. So it says there's no upload port. Now you see one, hopefully. Let me just check so you can see what I'm seeing. This just popped up because I plugged it in with the right jumper setting. So I'm going to try this again and hopefully it'll work. And then I'll check on the chat real quick. Okay. So that was quick. It says that it took 3 seconds. That's because it already built. It just needed the COM port to go to. So we're going to go over to the desktop real quick. I'm going to move that jumper back after I power it down. So this is PSU power. Plug it back in. Plug in the power. Then we'll go back into Pronterface and see what's going on. So connect, and then we'll try and move it. So let's check home. So it might be my imagination, it might be louder, I'm not sure. But let's try something. If I have it. I think I do. Let's try checking the sound. This might involve me being quiet, which I know might be more of a pleasure. So I've got a sound level meter here. I've only used it once before. So it's going to pick up noise from the motor, hopefully. Let's see if I can put it in a place where you can see it without dragging it across. Let me test the movement here. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it make more sound. So it looks like it goes up about 5 dB. Okay, so I think it's noisier, but let's check by changing the firmware back. I know this is a weird experiment, but let me go back to VS Code real quick. Inside VS Code, I'm just going to try an experiment right here. I'm going to comment it back out. I'm going to power down the system for a second. And I'll show you what I'm doing on the desktop. I'm actually going to notice how we also got more dBs drop because of the power supply. So it's adding several dB. There we go. Plug this back in. Now I'm going to go back over and upload this real quick. dB's changed. So it went from 55 to 60 when moving. Okay, let's double check it's there. It is. Let's go back to the desktop. Let's unplug it. Move the jumper over. This time we're just going to power it up, and it'll load for us. Note the dB level. I'm going to go over to Pronterface. Going to connect to the board. By the way, I forgot to tell you about the M122. So M122 tells you the status. Notice how it says OK. That's what you're looking for. So now I'm going to move this, and I'm actually going to zoom in on the screen so you can see what's going on. So watch the dB meter while I do this. So it might be a fraction quieter. But it's hard to tell. Anyways, let me check on the chat real quick because I know I just went off on a tangent. Okay, well, we're coming up on an hour and a half and I'm getting kind of worn out. You can tell that I've had a long work day. If anybody has any questions, let me know. And for the people that have been giving super chats and tips, thank you very much. I'll try and research some of these questions, see if we can address them. I'm gonna have to get a 0.9 degree step motor because mine is installed in a printer that you've probably seen the videos on if you can find the obscure printer where I don't talk. It's in my playlist. It looks like a Ender but slightly different. I think I designed it a long time ago, so I haven't used it in a while, but we'll see if it works one of these days when I have more space. But for everyone that stopped by to watch today, thank you very much, and take care, be safe, and if you have questions, remember I have Discord, and I'll also be on tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I think Adrian's getting his parts for his Ender 5, so hopefully we can finish it because I just checked with him in the morning. So hopefully we can take a look at that. I don't know if he wants to do it on stream or not, but we'll see. And everyone take care, and thanks for the super chats and tips on PayPal. It's greatly appreciated.